Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a huge philosophical problem that, you might not even realize it, is shaping pretty much everything around you, from our politics to the art we create. We're going to be using R.J. Rushdoony's work, The One and the Many, to help us unpack this really powerful idea.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. First, we'll uncover a hidden problem that you probably deal with every single day without even knowing it. Then, we'll get to the heart of it, this epic clash between unity and individuality. After that, we'll see how this isn't just theory. It has massive real-world consequences. We'll look at why most answers seem to lead to a dead end, and then we'll explore a very unique solution proposed in our source material. All right, so let's jump in with a question that probably sounds familiar, but I promise you, it has incredibly deep roots that snake all the way back through the entire history of human thought. We see this debate everywhere, don't we? It's all over the news and our communities, this constant tug of war between personal freedom and the common good, or individual rights versus the needs of the group. It feels like a very modern, very political fight. But what if I told you that this entire conflict is just a symptom of a much, much older philosophical puzzle? It's called the problem of the one and the many. And the fascinating thing is, whether we know it or not, the answer we choose for this problem basically determines everything else we believe. So what in the world are the one and the many? Now, these aren't just some poetic terms. They represent two fundamentally different ways of seeing all of reality. Let's break these down.
So the one is all about unity, the whole, the big picture concept. A great way to think about it is like a forest. It's that single overarching thing. For philosophers, this could be the state, humanity, or even the universe itself as a single entity.
And then you have the many. And if the one is the forest, well, the many are all the individual trees that make it up. It's you, me, this microphone, that car out the window, all the separate, distinct little bits of reality that we can see and touch. Okay, so this choice, this fork in the road, it leads you down one of two major philosophical paths. If you believe the one is what's ultimately real, you're in a camp called realism. You'd say that big ideas like justice or the state are more real and more fundamental than any single person. But if you believe the many are what's real, then you're a nominalist. You'd argue that only individual things truly exist, and a word like justice is just a label we've invented. Seriously, your answer here shapes your entire view of the world. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. Because this is not just some dusty old philosophical debate for a university classroom. The choice you make has dramatic, real-world consequences. Let's take a look at how this plays out in our politics, our schools, and even in our art. In politics, it is crystal clear. If you think the one, the state, the community, is ultimate, then logically, the individual serves the state. Thinkers like John Dewey literally called this great community the most basic fact of history. But if you think the many, each individual person, are what's truly real and ultimate, then any authority the state claims is basically tyranny. And if you take that logic all the way, you end up at anarchism. And you see this exact same fight playing out in our schools. Is the main goal of education to create good citizens, to socialize kids to fit into the group? That is the realist approach. Or is education just about stuffing a kid's head with a bunch of separate individual facts with no connection to any bigger universal truth or morality? That's the nominalist view. Believe it or not, this conflict even shows up in art. A lot of medieval art was super realist. It cared way more about portraying a universal idea like faith or love than it did about making a person look exactly like they did in real life. But then, you get to later centuries, and nominalist art gets obsessed with the particular. It's all about photographic realism capturing every single wart and wrinkle on a person's face. So, the source we're digging into today makes a really bold claim. Trying to solve this problem by just picking a side, by saying either the one or the many is the only thing that matters, well, it's a dead end. Rushdoony's point is that both of these paths end up destroying themselves. Think about it. If you go with pure individuality, pure nominalism, then there's no such thing as a universal truth, right? There are just your facts and my facts. But if you go with pure unity, pure realism, then truth gets swallowed up by the group, and anything that creates division, even if it's true, is seen as evil. Now, some Eastern philosophies do have a way out. They just go all in on the one. The Buddhist poet Milarepa gets at this idea of just dissolving the self into this great, all-encompassing unity. From that perspective, the individual self is basically an illusion, and so is history, and so are all the particular things in it. They don't really matter in the end. But in the West, well, that idea of totally losing yourself never really sat right. So instead, for centuries, we've had this constant, restless tug of war between the one and the many, with no final solution in sight.
So if picking a side is a dead end, is that it? Is there another option? Well, the source we're looking at says yes, and it's a pretty unique one. An answer drawn from Christian theology that's presented as a way out of this ancient paradox.
And the starting point for this idea comes from the Christian doctrine of the Trinity. Now, at its core, this is a concept that tries to hold two things together that seem like opposites: perfect absolute unity and real distinct diversity. It says they aren't a contradiction, but a fundamental reality.
So the argument goes something like this. In the very nature of God himself, what theologians call the ontological trinity, the one, which is the single being of God, and the many, which are the three distinct persons of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, are completely co-equal. They are equally ultimate. One isn't more real or more basic than the other.
What this means, as the source explains, is that you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. Unity and individuality aren't enemies here. They aren't in competition. They're both equally real, equally basic to the fabric of reality itself. Unity doesn't crush diversity, and diversity doesn't shatter unity.
And that's the big idea we're left with. It's a really provocative thought to end on. What if we stopped seeing the individual and the group as enemies locked in a zero-sum game? What if we could accept that both unity and individuality can be equally fundamental, equally real, and equally good? Just imagine what new possibilities might open up, and how that might change the way we build our world.